Welcome. So as we begin our process of learning and refining, and for many of us revisiting Surya Namaskar B, or Sun Salutation version B, let's begin by connecting with ourselves and coming into alignment with our body. So from the top of your mat, take a moment to feel your feet rooted, planted, but also expanding, growing. As we flow today, we'll really experience the sensation of being both rooted, planted, and growing, creating expansion in otherwise what feels like one might assume to be stillness. So noticing where your weight is shifted in your feet and finding that middle place. And as we come into ourselves, take a moment, if you haven't already done so, perhaps to close the eyes, noticing what closing the eyes does to the balance right away. Noticing what becomes more obvious with the eyes closed. And finding your breath. Noticing where the breath is most obvious and noting the different sensations of your breath, whether it feels fast or slow, deep or shallow, whether it feels free or controlled. Noticing which parts of the body are directly impacted by the process of inhaling and exhaling. And noticing which parts of the body don't seem as overtly impacted, immediately impacted by that process. Noticing if there are any additional movements in the body, maybe micro movements, swaying side to side or in a circular motion, all the little ways that the muscles of the body are working to keep you upright. And let's take 3 breaths together to open this practice. Inhale, envision your breath pulling up from the earth, through the soles of the feet, up the legs and torso, up through the neck and the crown of the head. And as you exhale, allowing the breath to ease back down into the earth. Feel yourself rooted. Maybe softening the knees as you inhale again, drawing the air up, but this time feeling expansion in the belly, in the chest. And as you exhale, feeling the body squeezing back into the midline. One more time, inhale to lengthen, growing taller, growing wider, growing more full. This time as you exhale, imagine pressing that air out through every pore of your body, expanding out into the world. And when you're ready, we'll flutter the eyes open as we prepare for the first posture in Surya Namaskar B, chair pose. And as we prepare for our chair pose, or Utkatasana, we'll take a couple of options. Now, you may choose to keep your feet hip-width apart. Hip-width meaning where the hip bones go down, that's about where the tops of the feet might be, about where the heels of the feet happen to align. Well, behind those bones, of course. But for chair pose, you may find, especially if you're towards the beginning of your yoga journey, this sort of sense of loosey-goosiness, and it's hard to bring everything into alignment. So what may feel more supportive for you is to bring your legs together, aligning the body in the way that feels appropriate for your actual anatomy. So not feeling in any way that the knees are bending inward, keeping the legs parallel. And if your thighs happen to be such that your feet don't come together when your legs are together, keeping that in mind, and that's perfectly fine, such that whenever you bend the knees, they track directly over the feet. So either supporting one leg into the other, and perhaps if your knees come together but your thighs don't, making sure that there's not too much pressure on the knees. Maybe the balls of the feet touch the sides of the big toes coming together, really playing with what alignment feels like in your body today. So taking your choice. Now, there's another option for this chair pose, which is to use a block. So maybe you do want to work on your hip distance posture and variation of chair pose. You can also just take a block, squeezing that block, while again making sure that you're not recreating a sort of knock-kneed posture, but rather that the inner thighs are drawing together as you prepare. So taking whichever variation you would prefer as we begin to practice our chair pose today. Look down at your feet with your shoulders over your hips, looking straight down. You should be able to at least see your toes, perhaps. And if you can see your toes, maybe the tops of your feet, we want to maintain that line of vision as we sit back, not down. And as you sit back, we have lots of options for the arms. Let's begin by swinging them forward directly, maybe keeping the arms parallel to the ground for a moment. If that feels like a bit too much for now, you can bring the palms together, even bring your hands to your hips as we really work on focusing on this alignment of the seat. Sitting back as far as you can. Now, you may actually find that bringing the hands forward is easier because it can create a sense of pulling against the tailbone, something to counterbalance that weight moving back by pulling forward. You can take that higher or keep it parallel. Breathing here, draw the navel up towards the spine. And then we'll bring the palms together and we'll release into a forward fold. If you're using a block, you can remove it now, maybe softening the knees for a moment. If the hands don't quite reach the ground, you can bend the arms at the elbows. Let's take a moment to just sway side to side, warming the hamstrings. Alternating bent legs, knees, release and extend. Really create a sense that the tailbone is reaching upward and the crown of the head is reaching downward. Allow the weight of the shoulders, the upper back to spill down the arms. And now, whether you're using blocks or not, your choices are many as we become to a half lift. You can always bring the hands down to the ground and bend the knees as much as you need to as you open in the chest. Or you can bring the hands to the legs anywhere but the knees. So either on the shins or the thighs as you extend through the upper back. You can also bring your block on any height, low, medium, or high, to bring the ground up to you as you lengthen in the spine. So coming to your half lift now, if you haven't already done so, let's just play a little, continuing to straighten and bend each leg, continuing to warm the hamstrings and beginning to also warm the hips a little bit. Bringing some movement into the body. Wherever you are with the hands, rotate the shoulders away from the ears. And then draw the rib cage up towards the spine, closing that front gate as you lengthen through the crown of the head. Not rounding the spine, just drawing yourself into the midline of the body. If you're using blocks, you can set them aside. Bend the knees as far as you need to bring your hands onto the ground and step back into a plank posture. Here at the top of your push-up, so to speak, take a look between the feet. Make sure that the feet are about hip width apart. The shoulders over the wrists. Draw the navel up towards the spine. Press through the heels. You're welcome to tap the knees down at any point. Continue to breathe here for a moment. And then we're going to make our way all the way down to the ground. You can get there however you'd like. If you're working on your Chaturanga, either with the knees down or with the legs up, we'll rock forward a bit, really using maybe the toes to push, create leverage. Imagining the elbows wanting to stay where they are over the wrists, but the shoulders wanting to move beyond the fingertips as you come down. Release the tops of the feet onto the mat, keeping the hands pressed into the mat. Let's focus for a few moments on spreading the fingers wide. Feel the palm of your hand. In fact, as you focus on the palm of your hand, see if you can create the sensation, a bit like a suction cup. The circle perimeter of your palm pressing into the mat, but also engaging the tips of your fingers, creating all of these pressure points to distribute weight across the hand. This is exceedingly helpful work as we prepare for our downward facing dog and eventually hand balancing postures. Feel your elbows directly behind you, aiming behind you towards the feet. Triceps draw toward one another, and the back of the neck is long, so really looking straight down. And take another round of breath here in this very low cobra. Lengthening from the crown of the head to the toes, pressing the tops of the feet into the ground. Maybe you press so much that the knees lift off the ground a bit. And when you're ready, tuck your toes. And we'll inhale to push ourselves up through a bit of a table. And we'll take a moment to pause here as we prepare to open the spine. Walk the hands underneath you so that the shoulders are directly over the wrists. The knees directly underneath the hips. Toes can remain tucked for balance, or you can work on extending and lengthening the tops of the feet by coming onto the tops of the feet themselves. Yogi's choice. From here, let's begin by really feeling this neutral space, lengthening from the crown of the head to the tailbone. Rotate the shoulders away from the ears and notice what that does to both the chest and the upper back. We want to find a neutral place, which means that we think of the shoulder blades as drawing toward one another, but creating a little bit of space between them so that we aren't jutting the chest down towards the ground. Instead, think of drawing that rib cage up to meet the shoulder blades, and the shoulder blades creating a width, a wide top of your table. Navel coming in towards the spine. Now, from this flat or neutral place, let's move and undulate. Inhale and look up towards the ceiling. Allow the navel to drop a little bit towards the ground and the tailbone to reach high. And as you exhale, reverse that, curving the crown of the head and the tailbone towards the ground, drawing the navel up towards the sky itself. Inhale, uncoil the spine, maybe beginning with the tailbone and rolling through the spine, the crown of the head arriving last. And as you exhale, try to reverse that. Start with the tailbone and curl under all the way. One more round like that, undulating from the tailbone, uncurling the spine. As you inhale to look up, exhale, beginning with the tailbone drawing under and really articulating through the spine here as you exhale. And then find your neutral table for a moment. And let's get ready to move into our first downward facing dog. But before we get there, let's take a bit of a rest. So let's take our first child's pose by keeping our legs parallel as they are, coming onto the tops of the feet. Draw the hips back towards the heels and take the tops of your hands onto the mat by the sides of your feet. Bring the forehead to the mat. Take an inhale here. Exhale to release. And with the lips closed, continuing to breathe, see if you can find a sense of ease. Now, if ease feels antithetical to this posture for you because it feels a bit claustrophobic, or there's just too much pressure on the belly or the thighs, we can create a bit of space. So to do that, you may instead bring the hands forward and take the knees about as wide as the mat, big toes touching. It might feel good to wiggle in here a bit, opening in the inner thighs. Looking forward, we'll walk the hands out, soften the elbows, and bring the forehead back down to the mat. So either version of child's pose is perfectly appropriate. So throughout our practice today, or whenever you're practicing, please know that you're invited to take whichever variation of child's pose feels best for your body. Depending on the asana that comes before and after it, I may make a suggestion about parallel legs, releasing shoulders, or open knees, releasing in the hips. But you're welcome to take anything that feels best for you in that moment. And just taking another couple of breaths now in your preferred version of child's pose. Watching the breath move up and down the spine. And without rushing it forward, at the bottom of your next exhale, let's bring the arms forward if they aren't already there. Take some weight into the hands as you inhale, look forward, pulling yourself with your fingertips. Come on up, back into table, walking your way so that the shoulders are over the wrists and the hips over the knees. Tuck the toes, and now we're going to reverse into our downward facing dog. And by reverse into it, like our cat and cow, we're going to use the tailbone to guide us. So with the toes tucked behind us, our feet about hip width apart, imagine the tailbone pulling you back until the knees lift and you make your way into a very bent-kneed downward facing dog. Now from here, let's play a bit. You can lengthen one leg, straightening the knee, maybe sway side to side, warming that hamstring, and then softening that knee and straightening the other. You can walk your hands either out a bit further ahead of you or out wider than your shoulders, wherever feels good for you as you find where your downward dog feels fitting in your body today, playing with both knees bent. Let's straighten the left leg, bend the right knee deeply, and look under the right arm. Taking a gentle twist here, feeling the left hamstrings lengthen. On your next inhale, bend both knees, look between the hands. And we'll exhale and switch, straighten the right leg, with the left knee very bent, looking underneath the left arm, maybe swaying the hip side to side. On your next inhale, let's bend both knees and look forward. And this time, let's use the soles of our feet, our metatarsals, to push us forward as we roll to a plank, lengthening through the body, pressing through the heels, lengthening through the crown of the head. Soften the knees and reverse back into downward facing dog. Let's inhale, curling through the spine to reach our plank, lengthening, lifting the navel. Exhale, soften the knees, pull back one more time. Inhale, uncurl through the spine, finding your plank, lengthening here. Exhale, soften the knees, pull back, and take a mini version of your preferred child's pose. Just a couple of breaths to release the shoulders, relax the arms for a few moments. When you arrive, take a deep breath in, and let's take a sigh to release with an exhale. And then closing the mouth, breathing through the nose, if it's accessible to you today. And just letting the breath be natural. Really finding the difference between work and rest. Giving yourself permission to rest. And without rushing it forward, at the bottom of your next exhale, bring the hands forward. Inhale, look forward. Pull yourself onto all fours, tuck the toes, and let's lift backwards into downward facing dog. And now let's take the right leg straight behind us, toes pointing down. Sort of feeling our way in this legs closed version of a three-legged dog. Rolling in the hips, swaying a little bit side to side, feeling the balance here. Now bend the right knee, and now open that knee high towards the ceiling or towards the side of the room, feeling the difference between open hip and closed hip. Now, if you've turned your body a bit to the side, let's try to draw the torso parallel, keeping the chest facing the mat or facing the midline rather than the side. Extend that leg behind you. Bend that knee again. Now turn that knee down towards the ground, leg parallel. And we return the right foot towards the left. Let's take that on the other side. First, lengthen the left leg straight behind you, toes point down. Take a moment here, wiggling in your close-hipped, three-legged downward facing dog. Then bend the left knee so the foot points straight up. And then open that hip by letting the knee open to the side or move towards the sky. Draw the shoulders into alignment. Try to keep the torso quiet as the hips begin to open. Maybe feeling the stretch in the right calf or hamstrings. Lengthening that leg for a moment. Bending the knee again. Turning the hip close so that the knee points again straight down. And releasing that left foot back down to the mat. Let's take another mini pause in child's pose just to release the shoulders. Just a few breaths, exhaling down into your child's pose. Either drawing the arms behind you to release the shoulders, or keeping them ahead of you and just releasing the elbows. Just a couple of breaths in this brief child's pose. And without rushing it forward, at the bottom of your next exhale, bring the hands forward if they aren't already. Then inhale and look forward, pressing the weight into the fingertips. Pull yourself up onto all fours, tuck the toes, reverse into downward facing dog. And let's take that right leg behind us again. This time, bend the right knee. Roll forward to a three-legged plank. And now we're going to place the right foot outside the right wrist. Very long lunge here. You're going to spiral the left heel down to the mat. And keep the left hip drawing forward. And bring your hands onto your right thigh. as we make our way in preparation for Warrior I. Virabhadrasana I in Sanskrit. The one is in English. The first variation of our warrior pose has the hips yearning forward, closed-hipped variation. The left foot is planted from the left heel, the outer blade of the left foot. The right knee is pressing forward. The hips continue to try to face forward, which means that the right side of the hip may feel like it's coming back. The left side of the hip may feel like it's moving forward. Really paying attention to the muscles in the left thigh, rotating them up and away from the knee to protect the knee from taking too much weight. You can, of course, bring your hands onto your hips or maybe bring them straight up. You can bring the palms together at the chest. Yogi's choice. Really focusing on the alignment of the legs for now. Let's take one more lengthening breath, drawing the navel in towards the spine, lengthening through the crown of the head. And as you exhale, let's bring the hands down to the mat, popping onto the toes of the left foot, setting up. And we'll just fire hydrant our right leg back to meet the left. That's a fun little image that comes from one of my teacher friends, Miss Takis Campbell. Now from here, from our plank, you can either stay here or tap the knees down. Yogi's choice. We're going to make our way back to the mat again. Belly comes all the way down. Remember, if you're working on your Chaturanga, either with the knees down or up, rocking forward, elbows want to stay over the wrists and the shoulders come forward. Come all the way down onto the tops of the feet. Lengthen through the back of the neck. Let's keep the hands on the mat. Spread them. Spread the fingers wide. Lengthen through the back of the neck. Long. As you breathe, slowing it down. We're going to transition back into downward facing dog. So tuck the toes. Inhale, push yourself back through table. And let's take the hips up. Left leg comes up and we're going to take that on the left side. So bend the left knee. Roll forward to a three-legged plank. Please place that left foot outside the left wrist. The right heel comes to the mat. Now, we'll notice that the right foot's at a roughly 45-degree angle. Basically, the toes are turned out. Remember, yearning the hips close. The right side of the hip may try to yearn forward. Come on up. Hands on the left thigh for a moment. Really feeling that space in the hip. Pressing into the right heel, outer blade of the right foot. Using that right thigh to pull the muscles away from the knee. Maybe think of rotating it up. Spiraling away from that knee to protect and make sure that we aren't collapsing into the weight of that knee. The left knee yearns forward, that left shin yearning towards the wall or the sky or the infinite edges of the universe ahead of us. Really think of drawing the left side of the hip back, the right side of the hip forward as the hips yearn closed. Hands can take any of those variations mentioned before, so they can stay on that left thigh. They can come to the hips, rest together at heart center. They can rise. Yogi's choice. And wherever you are, lengthening through the crown of the head and drawing the navel in. So you should notice that your feet are like on two tracks, like railroad tracks. So they aren't in the same line. This is why we took the foot on the outside of the wrist, creating a bit of width for balance. Take one more lengthening inhale, and we'll exhale. Reach out and forward as you bring the hands down inside that left foot. Take that right knee, the right heel off the ground, and let's fire hydrant that left leg back to meet the right, coming to our plank, setting up, readjusting if need be, pressing from heels straight back through the crown of the head. Rotate the shoulders away from the ears. The crooks of the elbows point forward. And either with the knees down or with the knees up, we'll make our way all the way onto our belly. Perhaps rocking forward to prepare for Chaturanga. Release the tops of the feet, taking the fingertips wide, lengthening through the back of the neck, feeling an active posture here. Triceps yearn towards one another. Take one more lengthening breath. Tuck the toes and we'll exhale and reverse into our downward facing dog. And this time taking a couple rounds of breath in Adho Mukha Svanasana, downward facing dog. Your choice, you can play with straight legs or bent, but note that keeping the knees soft may create a greater sense of freedom in the pelvic bowl, allowing you to tilt the pelvis, lift the tailbone higher towards the ceiling, towards the sky, towards the infinite edges of the universe itself. Thinking about drawing the shoulders away from the ears, maybe rotating in the shoulder girdle. Take one more breath here. And before we complete this very first round of our experiment with Surya Namaskar B, let's take one more child's pose to rest. Yogi's choice, knees wide with the big toes touching, or releasing with the legs parallel. I'm taking the wide-legged variation with my arms forward, but if your legs are parallel, it might feel more comfortable to take the hands behind you. Once you've arrived, take a deep breath in. And exhale with a sigh, just to create more ease. Closing the mouth and letting the breath breathe itself. And at the bottom of your next exhale, if the arms aren't already ahead of you, go ahead and reach forward. And as you inhale, press your fingertips into the mat, look forward, pull yourself onto all fours, find parallel legs again. If the knees were wide, tuck the toes, reverse into downward facing dog. And now inhale, look forward and walk your way to the top of the mat. Just for this first round, really exploring the articulation of the feet as you make your way forward. Setting up for our chair pose, let's begin by either taking that hip distance stance or bringing the legs together, whichever version you're working with today. Maybe picking up that block if you're going to use one, between the legs, between the thighs. And let's begin first by finding a half lift, lengthening the spine. And release, spilling the crown of the head forward. We'll sit back, releasing the hips behind us, and then lengthen the arms ahead of you or bring the palms together, reaching through the crown wherever you want to take your practice of this chair pose and this round. Taking some breaths here, see if you can draw the shoulder blades towards one another. Create more space in the throat and the back of the neck. Lengthening through the crown of the head, draw the navel in towards the spine. And on your next inhale, think of lengthening through the crown of the head. Press the feet into the ground as you rise to stand. Exhale here to release. Beautiful. Now that we've taken a slow exploration of each of the elements of Surya Namaskar B, let's begin to put it together. So first, take a moment to close the eyes. Palms together at heart center, resting the thumbs or the heels of the hand at the solar plexus or the top of the rib cage or the chest. Feel the space between the ears and the shoulders, maybe rotating in the shoulder blades to release and create more space. Gently hugging the shoulder blades toward one another, but not squeezing so much that it pops the chest wide open. Quieting the rib cage, allowing everything in the front and the back to draw toward the midline of the body, lengthening through the throat and the back of the neck. Softening in the knees if need be to feel the hips coming into alignment over the heels and ankles. Feel the weight evenly distributed over your feet. And when you're ready, we'll flutter the eyes open. Take an inhale, grow taller. And as you exhale, sit back, reaching the arms forward if you wish, making sure you can still see the tops of your feet or your toes as you lengthen, expanding the body forward and back in space. Continuing to breathe here. And on your next exhale, let's bring the palms together and spill forward. Crown of the head reaches towards the ground. Forward fold. Placing the hands wherever feels good to you, will lengthen in a half lift. Rotate the shoulders away from the ears. Then we'll soften the knees, bring the hands down, and step back into plank. From here, rotate the shoulders away from the ears. Make sure the crooks of the elbows point forward, the elbows themselves point backward. And your choice, we're going to begin to move towards upward facing dog. Getting there either with bent knees or straight legs. As we prepare, this time we're going to move toward our Chaturanga. So we've been practicing rocking forward. Let's see what happens if we go halfway down. So imagine the shoulders coming parallel to the elbows. And then from here, we lengthen the arms, come onto the tops of the feet, and lengthen throughout the legs so that the knees rise off the mat. Opening now in the chest, drawing those shoulder blades together. And then maybe bringing the knees gently back down to the ground, tuck the toes, pulling backward to your downward facing dog. Inhale the right leg up, keeping that leg parallel, toes point down. Let's bend the right knee, roll forward to our three-legged plank, and place the right foot outside the right wrist. Spiral the left heel down. And we'll inhale to lengthen out ahead of us first. Then rise. Yogi's choice on where you'd like to take your hands. Maybe even playing with an open Egyptian variation to borrow from modern dance terminology. Comes from the Horton technique. Maybe bringing the palms together. Wherever you are, lengthen the back of the neck, lengthen the throat, draw the navel into the spine. Remember to yearn the left side of the hip forward, the right side of the hip back. One more lengthening breath here. And let's exhale and reach out long. Then set ourselves up. Steady base, lifting the left heel. Go ahead and take that right foot back to meet the left, either with the knees up or with the knees down. Rocking forward in your Chaturanga, coming halfway down. Tops of the feet, find the mat. Legs off of the ground as you inhale. Upward facing dog. Tuck the toes, draw the navel into the spine, bend the knees deeply, pull back from the tailbone to downward facing dog. Take the left foot up, toes point down, bend the left knee, step the left foot outside the left wrist, draw the right heel down, and lengthen out and come up on an inhale. Warrior one. Yogi's choice of arm variations here. Really feeling your base at your feet, your hips, yearning forward from the right, yearning back on the left, pressing through the left shin, drawing the navel in to protect the spine. Take another couple of breaths here. Making sure that the left knee is not collapsing inward. Keep it tracking beyond the foot. And we'll inhale the arms up. Exhale, lengthen out and down. Pop that right heel off. Left leg finds the right. Inhale, lengthen in your plank. Knees up or down. We'll make our way rocking forward halfway down. Then extending the arms as we extend the legs. Urdhva Mukha Svanasana. Upward facing dog. Exhale, tuck the toes, soften the knees, hips pull you backward to Adho Mukha Svanasana. Downward facing dog. Rotate the shoulders away from the ears. See if you can create a sense of ease here as you breathe. Taking a couple more rounds of breath if you can before we take a little pause. And we'll invite one child's pose into this round. So making your way into either the parallel-legged or wide-legged variation, maybe hanging out in your downward facing dog a little bit longer. If you're bringing your legs parallel, the invitation is always to bring the hands behind you. Releasing the forehead to the ground. Take a deep breath in and go ahead and exhale with a sigh. Find more release. Then close the mouth and just let the breath breathe itself. Watching it move up and down the spine. Just a couple more breaths to really give yourself a sense of ease. This is a pause. This is a rest. Let it feel different than work. And at the bottom of your next exhale, reaching the arms forward if they aren't already. On an inhale, taking the weight into your fingertips to pull yourself up onto all fours. Tuck the toes. Tailbone pulls you backward into downward facing dog. And this time, let's see if we can step to the top of the mat. One foot and then the other. Finding the chair pose posture at the feet that you prefer, either with the feet parallel or go ahead and bring the feet together. Yogi's choice. Let's begin with a half lift. So uncoiling the spine from the base, lengthening through the crown. This time as you exhale, go ahead and sit back directly from this half lift and lengthen the arms as you inhale, coming to your chair pose. Rotate the shoulders away from the ears. Maybe rotate your pinky fingers toward one another to create some space in the tops of the shoulders. And we'll bring the palms together. Inhale, lengthening to press the feet into the ground and rise through the crown. And as you exhale, release. Beautiful. So we'll take one more round of Surya Namaskar B, roughly moving towards one breath and one movement before we make our way onto the mat to relax a little bit. So find your way again, setting your feet up at the top of your mat. And take a moment to close your eyes. Feel your weight distribution once more. Making sure that your weight is evenly distributed across your feet. If you've chosen your feet to be parallel and hip distance apart, just feeling that weight distribution. If you've chosen for your feet to be together, feel the points of contact between the toes. Rotate the shoulders away from the ears. At the bottom of your next exhale, flutter the eyes open. Inhale, lengthen through the crown of the head. Exhale, sit back and reach the arms forward. Draw the navel in to protect the spine. Rock that tailbone back behind you. Lengthen. Shoulders away from the ears. Feel the weight rocking towards the heels. Maybe you can lift the toes and place them back down. Take one more lengthening inhale. Then we'll exhale and spill forward, crown of the head, really yearning towards the ground. Uncoil the spine. Half lift. Roll the shoulders away from the ears. Exhale from here, just bend the knees, bring the hands down, and step back into your plank. Yogi's choice, either with the knees up or with the knees down. We'll rock forward through our Chaturanga, halfway down. Then lengthen the arms, lengthen the legs to lift up in upward facing dog. Draw the navel in, tuck the toes, bend the knees, pull backwards to downward facing dog. Inhale the right leg up, toes down, bend the knee. Roll forward to a three-legged plank and place that right foot outside the right wrist. Spiral the left heel down. Inhale to lengthen the arms forward and then come up. Exhale, root deeper. Take whichever arm variation you would like. Feel the left side of the hip yearn forward, the right side of the hip yearn back. And we'll just take one more breath in. Exhale, place the hands down. Create a base, lift the left heel. Lengthen the right leg back to meet the left. Chaturanga, knees up or down, halfway. Then inhale, lengthen, upward facing dog. Exhale, gently pull back, downward facing dog. Left foot rises, bend the left knee. Step the left foot behind the left wrist. Spiral the right heel down. Inhale, lengthen out, and then up. Exhale, release and root deep. Playing with whichever arm variation you'd like. Drawing the navel in to protect the spine, yearning the right side of the hip forward, the left side of the hip back. Take an inhale, lengthen up. Exhale, lengthen out. Place the hands down, lift the right heel. Take the left leg back to meet the right. And last round of Chaturanga. Knees up or down, rock halfway down. Then lengthen the arms and lengthen the legs. Exhale, tuck the toes, reverse back into downward facing dog. And let's slow it down here. Of course, you're welcome to take a child's pose if you need at any point. But can you find a way to make your downward facing dog feel like a rest? Can you release where you don't need to work? Can you slow the breath? Can you soften in ways that allow for greater freedom? And we'll take just another round or two of breath here. If you're in child's pose, I invite you to join us back in our last round of breath for downward facing dog as we inhale, draw the tailbone up, exhale, release. Look forward between your hands and step to the top of the mat, releasing into your forward fold. Crown of the head releases towards the ground. On your next inhale, uncoil the spine into a half lift. Exhale, sit back. Reach the arms forward. Release into your chair pose. Lifting the chest, lengthening from tailbone to fingertips. We'll bring the palms together at the chest. On your next inhale, feel the weight come into the feet as you lengthen the crown up towards the sky. Exhale, release. And I invite you to close the eyes for a moment. Just noticing the effect of that round of Surya Namaskar B. Noticing any warmth or sensations in the body. And bringing the attention to the soles of the feet. Feel your weight evenly distributed. Either the feet should feel hip width apart, or you can bring the feet together. Feeling that intentional stance. Soften the knees gently just so that you can bring the hips into alignment over the heels and ankles. Gently drawing the navel in towards the spine. Feeling the lower ribs quiet. The shoulder blades just side by side. Tops of the shoulders release. Opening in the throat, lengthening in the back of the neck, reaching through the crown of the head. On your next exhale, release with a sigh and flutter the eyes open. And we'll make our way back down. This time, we'll just inhale the fingertips up. Maybe finding the gentle back bend. And we'll exhale, swan dive over yourself as you release into forward fold. Uncoil the spine in a half lift. And then bend the knees and let's take a seat. Sitting tall, feel the tailbone, sitting bones on the ground. Feel the soles of the feet on the ground. Feel the toes on the ground. Rotate the shoulders away from the ears. Draw your hands into your shins and use them as a counterbalance to draw the torso towards the thighs. And if you're arching a bit like I am, let's find some alignment. So draw that navel in towards the spine, quiet the lower ribs. Allow the shoulder blades just to sit side by side. Melt the tops of the shoulders. Now, intentionally drawing that navel into the spine. Let's bring the palms to face up and we'll curl our way down to the mat, one vertebra at a time. See if you can really sense each of the vertebrae finding their way onto the ground. Last one there wins. And once you've made your way onto the mat, release the arms. Maybe walk the feet in a little bit more. See if you can maybe reach down and feel towards the heels. Feel the feet hip width apart. Feel the toes take some of the weight. Let's inhale and peel the tailbone off of the mat. Press the palms into the ground as we find a bridge pose. Sense the parallel legs, knees yearning forward. Maybe keeping the palms into the ground, pressing the triceps into the ground. Maybe interlacing the hands beneath you and opening a bit more in the chest, rotating the shoulders back. Take a lengthening breath here. Find length in the back of the neck. And as you exhale, if the fingers are interlaced, bring them back to the mat. Take another breath, lengthening from the knees to the crown of the head. And this time as you exhale, let's take our way down one vertebra at a time, starting from the top of the spine, really sensing each of the vertebrae doing their job as they release and stretch and create space between the bones of the spine. Beautiful. And let's take a gentle hip opener. So right foot reaches up, turn to open. The toes point out. Cross that knee. Bend the knee to cross the right ankle beyond the left thigh. And see if you can interlace your fingers behind your left thigh. Flex both feet. As you inhale, gently draw the left knee in towards the chest. As you exhale, gently open the right hip. The right thigh presses away with the right elbow. Find length in the back of the neck. Envision yourself lengthening from the crown of the head to the tailbone. Take another breath here. Inhale, draw that left knee in. Exhale, gently press that right thigh away. And then we'll release the left foot down. Reach the right foot up. Close that knee. Place the right heel and foot onto the mat. Left foot comes up. Turn the toes out. Cross the leg beyond the right. Bending at the left knee. Interlacing the fingers behind the right thigh. See if you can really take that left ankle beyond the right leg so that it's a bit in the air. Flex both feet. Inhale, draw the right knee in. Exhale, open the left elbow. Press the left thigh away, opening that left hip. Find length in the back of the neck, space between the ears and the shoulders. Really think of keeping that right leg even. Don't let it fall across the midline of the body. Really feel yourself wide and supported on the mat. Inhale, drawing that right knee in. Exhale, gently pressing that left thigh away. Take one more breath here, lengthening in every direction. As you exhale, release the right leg, release the right foot. Inhale, take that left foot up. Exhale, bring it down. And we'll bring the soles of the feet together. Let the knees fall open. You can bring the hands onto the thighs or onto the lower part of the belly. Maybe your left hand on the belly and the right hand on the chest. Whatever feels good to you in this Supta Baddha Konasana. Just letting the hips open, inner thighs open, the groin release. And you're welcome to stay here for a bit longer, or we'll begin to make our way into Shavasana. So just allowing the left and the right leg to lengthen, keeping the legs turned out so that the sides of the feet yearn towards the ground, and let the toes just fall open. Take a moment to press into your triceps and elbows just so that you can lift the chest a little and tuck the shoulder blades toward one another. Release the tops of the shoulders and then release the back of the hands onto the mat, onto the ground. Find length in the back of the neck, gentle opening in the throat, lengthening from the crown of the head to the soles of your feet. Let's take a deep breath in. Exhale with a sigh. Find more release. Then close the mouth and allow the breath just to breathe itself. Take another deep breath in. Exhale again with a sigh and see if there's even more release to be had. Closing the mouth again, letting the breath breathe itself. One last time, take a deep breath in. Exhale with a sigh. Is there even more release to be had? Closing the mouth, letting the breath breathe itself. And from this place of deep stillness and ease, maintaining a sense of ease as you begin to invite movement back into the body. So don't lose your ease. Within this ease, begin to wiggle your toes. Maybe curl and lengthen the fingers. And keeping the eyes closed, gently drawing the legs parallel again, sliding your feet along the mat as you bring the knees into the chest. Place the hands on the shins and maybe draw yourself into a little ball, holding tight and static and steady, or gently rocking if it feels good on the lower back. Keeping the eyes closed, we'll let both legs fall to the right side. Use your right arm as a pillow as you fully come onto the right side of the body. Let the left arm drape across the torso, the left hand finding the right arm or the mat or the ground. Take a deep breath in here. And sigh and find release on the side body. Closing the mouth and letting the breath breathe itself. And continuing to honor this place of ease that you have cultivated and found. On your next exhale, keeping the eyes closed, see if you can allow the left palm to find the ground and press yourself up to seated posture. And just using the sound cues and all of the other ways that your senses combine to create a sense of yourself and space, your proprioception, finding approximately the middle of your mat with the eyes closed. Finding a seat and immediately regaining that sense of ease and stillness. Take a deep breath in. Exhale with a sigh. Can you find more release? Keeping the eyes closed and honoring the softness, we'll just align the bones without engaging our muscles when we don't need to cultivate an upright posture. Start by bringing the attention to the tailbone, to the sitting bones. Feel the places where the body is in contact with the ground. Then sense the rib cage. Note if it feels like it's reaching forward or rocking back, and just allow it to rock towards the center, over your hips. And then your shoulders, maybe rotating in the shoulder girdle to open the chest slightly. Allow the shoulder blades to sit side by side. Shoulders directly over the hips, and we'll bring the palms together. Take a deep breath in, lengthening through the crown of the head. Exhale with a sigh. Finding more release. Closing the lips, allowing the breath to breathe itself and tilting the chin towards the chest. Allowing that to naturally take the gaze down as you begin to flutter the eyes open, perhaps seeing your hands and your legs and the ground, and allowing the vision to include your peripheral vision. Taking your time to uncurl the top of the spine as you begin to lengthen through the neck and the crown of the head. Take in all that's around you, in your room, in your space. Maybe eventually finding your way back to the screen. My name is Selena Brown of Pramana Wellness, teacher owner at The Connective. Thank you for sharing your practice with me. Be well.